Hey, what's going on, everyone? So glad to be with you for another weekly training where we talk about how to generate more leads, close more sales, and increase your profitability, all without spending an extra dime on marketing or advertising. The last few weeks, we've been really focused heavily on lead generation side, and in conversations with some of you, I know you've had some concerns around, well, hey, I'm getting more leads than I ever have, but I'm not closing as many as I should. And we want to make sure that if you're doing all the work on the front end to get people to contact you or reach you, then you need to be able to turn those into cash. The leads, you can't pay the mortgage, you can't pay payroll with just leads, right? So we're going to dive in today on ways to help you close more of your deals, and really by unpacking one of the things that I know that most of us all recognize, acknowledge that we should do, and we're doing maybe some degree, but quite often not as well as we could or should. We're going to make that as easy as possible for you, and we're talking about follow-up fundamentals. You've heard that there's fortune in the follow-up. I think it's something that as business owners, we all know to a certain, again, to some degree that, hey, this is important, but there's a couple of mistakes that people tend to make when it comes to following up. And so we're going to help make that simple so you don't make those mistakes. And so you can ultimately close more deals, generate more cash. So let's get the screen share fired up, and we're going to dive in to get you what you need. All right, so tell me if this sounds familiar. We'll just do a couple of quick examples. So let's say that we are doing all the work to generate 100 leads. And whether that's in a week, a month, doesn't matter, whatever time period you want to evaluate, just as you're trying to assess, again, how well this is working for your business. And maybe we'll just, for simple math, we close 50 of those. 50 of those turn into closed deals that we were able to generate projects or cash from. Awesome. So the question becomes, what do we do with these other 50? What's happening with those leads right now? Because we haven't closed them yet. And usually we hear all the typical responses like, I'm not sure if I can afford it, or I need to talk to my spouse, or I need to wait until XYZ thing happens, or I need to think about it, or I need to get more bids from somebody else. All those different excuses and reasons why that happens. And we get it happens to all of us, but we don't want to just leave these. What happens in most cases, we just wait for them to come back to us. We just wait. Hey, we usually end the call or end that bid or end the conversation with, hey, just give me a call when you have questions, or check out my quote or my bid and reach out to me when you're ready to get started. But that's usually where it ends for a lot of people. And maybe if you're a little bit above the curve, then you're going to be reaching out to people with some sort of follow-up, or you've got you or someone on your team. But this is usually the kind of most common systems that we run into when it comes to this, right? So maybe one approach could be, I've got it all in my brain. Let's try a better brain than that. Okay. I'm just using the old I'll remember approach as to when I'm going to get in touch with this homeowner, because maybe I've just got a feel for it. I'll look through my phone and I just remember talking to him, and I know it's been a couple of days. I'll just have I'll just remember when it's time to reach out to this person. I know some of you might be in that case. Yeah, put a 1 in the chat, or let me know, raise your hand if you know that's me. I'm just kind of leaning on my own memory. Others, they might go to the pen and paper method. They'll just make their own handwritten notes as to when I need to keep track of. And this is a little bit better than memory, because I think with all the different things we know we're competing for our attention as business owners, it can be tough to remember everything. So at least getting it out on paper can be a little bit easier to remember who needs to be followed up with by when. Some people maybe you use your phone for this. So we'll just use that as maybe the other method for your phone. So that might maybe a little bit better from a step up. And maybe some of you even more, or even more advanced or tracked with this, and then you're using maybe just an Excel sheet. And then you've got maybe the lead here. Here's the projects. Here's the date. Here's the number. And here's what that costs. I mean, you have a couple different ways to keep track of all your different leads and who needs to be checked in with over time. And hopefully this might even be in a shared space where you've got a Google Sheet or other document you can use to share with more people on your team, so others can look at it and know where people stand in the pipeline. That's maybe a little bit more involved with it as people that are trying to establish, as business establish what their follow-up systems are. hopefully you've at least thought of or been exposed to maybe even a better solution, or at least one that's a little bit higher ordered, becomes more meaningful as your lead flow increases. And then we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But that, raise your hand if you're in one of these three, or take a look at maybe which of these three is most likely fitting kind of what you're doing. We're going to talk about, regardless of what your current method is, let's unpack a couple of key things that need to happen for you to follow up effectively and for you to generate more sales from the leads you're already getting, from the leads you're already putting the work in, from wherever they're coming from. Okay. So there's three key pieces. Number one is have a system. Okay. Have a system. And by that, I mean, it's something that's repeatable. It's defined. It's not just, well, when I think about it, it's not just, well, when I happen to check my written notes in my phone, or written notes on my piece of paper, or when I happen to check. Really define what is the system for it. When the lead comes through, where are they being documented and captured so that things don't get missed. So have a system that you use, define what works for you. If you need some help brainstorming a plan for a system that's going to help you improve upon what you're already doing, again, without having to spend a bunch of money on tech or other human resources, things of that sort, let us know. Just drop a comment on this post, or reach out, and one of my team will be able to help get you some clarity on a better, more repeatable system that's going to help you get more results from what you have right now. But have a system beyond, with more definition and clarity, rather than just I think I'll remember it when I get to it. Okay, number two is have a schedule. Okay. And by that, I mean, a lot of times we think about, well, when do we follow up with answering key questions like, well, after I give out the bid, how many days or hours or weeks or whatever the case may be, should I be following up with them? Have a standardized schedule for when that's going to happen. Is it in X number of days? Is it in Y number of weeks? I would recommend days rather than weeks. You don't want people to go stale or forget about you altogether. But just figure out what is the right frequency for your first follow-up, maybe your second one, maybe your third. Have a defined schedule for that follow-up and for that process and what's going to look like. That's going to be one of the other key parts of your follow-up fundamentals, is understanding, okay, good, I've got a system that I know. Here's where I can keep track of people. Here's where they are in the process. Second step, let's have a schedule. We know that, okay, we're going to reach out to them on the first day after the bid. And then we'll check with them 3 days later. And then we'll do another check-in, either email or text. What's the right method, or what are all the pieces we want for my schedule? Is it email? Is it text? Are you just going to drive by? I mean, what is the right, in person? What makes sense for you and your business, and the types of bids that you're doing, and the relationship you have with that prospect. So again, define what is your schedule, what are the right levers that could be a part of that schedule. Third thing that you need is have a script. Why this is so important is that I think in a lot of cases, if you're right now as the business owner, you're doing all the follow-up yourself. Sometimes that's how it is early on. But at some point, we want you to be able to evolve the business and delegate some of that to someone else. Okay. As the business owner, because you've been doing it long enough and you're going to do it the best, you should be the best at this in your company right now. But that's not necessarily transferable to somebody else until you define a process and a script for them. Now, again, it doesn't have to be word for word. Maybe if you want to, that's fine. But you want to have at least some sort of way to train and outline the scripts for how the follow-up conversations should go. It might be intuitive for you because you've been at it the longest and been doing it the most, but that may not necessarily be the case for the people on your team that you either have already, or someone you might want to bring in as your business grows to be able to hand that off and do it more. So wherever you are in that process, whether you have that person now and can create that script and process so that they can model you, or if that's something that you need to develop and grow into over time, I'd encourage you to still outline it and document your process now, and document a script, or even just a loose bullet point script and outline for those conversations, so that when you do bring somebody in, they've already got something that can help get them to productivity as fast as possible without having to figure it out on their own, or just do much time shadowing. You're going to shorten their learning curve dramatically if you have a script that you can provide to them, or at least, again, some fundamentals for how you like those follow-up conversations to go. It's going to be different. The first message, the first time you check in with somebody, is going to be a little bit different from maybe the second or the third, and it should be. And I'm a big believer in we should follow up with our leads until it's a no, never, I will never work with you. Okay. Until it's a no, never, I'll never work with you, it still could be a yes. So we want to follow up with them until we get all the way to that final answer. Now you can decide again how many contacts and what's the frequency before we don't want to be necessarily nagging people, but we certainly want to show that we can serve because we all know one of the number one complaints that happens in our industry with contractors, home service businesses is when people just don't call them back. They can't get someone to reach out to them. So if we want to be the opposite of that and be more proactive, we can do it in a way where we're coming from service, we're coming to help them. It doesn't have to be naggy, but can be thorough, and you're going to end up closing more jobs before they decide to go with somebody else or punt and kick the can down the road even further. So again, 3 fundamentals: have a system. Don't just rely on your brain or pen and paper or even Excel sheet. There is software, other tools. If you decide that's something that or maybe you're already using some software, if you need some help with that to get that to sing at a higher tune, better notes, you get better conversions out of the system that you're using. Happy to help you with that as well. That's one of the things we do for our clients. But again, regardless of what you have, again, I'd encourage you, your homework for today, okay, define what your system is. Again, a system isn't just when I get around to it. It's got specific parameters, rules, what makes it a system, its definition, it's clear so that you could explain it to somebody else and they know this is how we follow up with our leads. 2, as part of that system, define what the schedule is. How often and how many times and in what ways, through email, text, or in person, what is your schedule and tools for the way you're going to follow up with those other leads that don't close. And then again, have a script so you can be consistent with it. As you're doing it, you should be able to know how many follow-up leads convert into sales. Maybe that's you recoup out of these 50 that we talked about earlier. This is the group we're trying to follow up with. How many of them are we closing a week after, 30 days after, 60 days after? What percentage of those are we recouping? If you have a defined system, schedule, and script, we'll then be able to know, hey, where do we need to make changes? The data will be able to tell us how you should adjust and adapt so you can continue to improve it. Let me know how this goes. Let me know what was most useful for you. And if you need some help, like I said, jumping into your fundamental follow-up process and so you can close more of the leads that you're already getting, drop us a note below or reach out to my team and we'll be happy to get that started and help you get things rolling. And we'll see you next week.